Good morning, everybody. It's 8 o'clock and we're at the intersection. It's good to see you this morning. We're going to spend a couple minutes with some announcements to give opportunity for more of us to show up. I wanted to put this one on screen because I hope that tickets go fast, because that means that people are interested in talking about compassion and what that means in our community and all the work that we're doing here at the intersection too. Foundationally, it's all about compassion. Whether it's about last week, we had the San Antonio Poverty Report, but today we are looking at a grant opportunity for pretty much anybody in the city, but in terms of sustainability in the environment. And so compassion is that sense of agency and then action, and being able to take action to be more compassionate to the most vulnerable of needs that we have in San Antonio, and that includes our environment. So I hope you all, I'll take a screen. I'll make a little copy up here and put it in chat if I can get my mouse to like be more agreeable with me this morning. I'll put that in chat. And I'm wondering if anybody else has announcements out there. I don't know if Art is with us. I know he had an announcement about John Deere coming into town. Sister Martha Ann Kirk, I think, also has an announcement about women waging peace, both Palestinian and Israeli women who are working together. So I don't know if they're on the screen yet. I don't see them yet. So if and when they show up, we will hear more. Any other announcement? Hey, Kelly, tell us what you got.
I just want to say thank you. We're having continued support for Feed SA. So thank you for the groups and individuals last week that signed up to be a champion and support closing the hunger gap this summer. So we're moving forward. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Kelly. And if you all haven't met Kelly yet, because she's still fairly new, she can only claim that for about a year, and then it's not that, right? But she's still fairly new. And Kelly, what is your role? What's your title at the food bank?
Yeah, I can. My role, I'm in my parking lot at the food bank. My role is interfaith engagement management. So what I do is I work with faith-based groups in the greater San Antonio area to support how they want to address hunger in the area. So, and other issues. I mean, it might be they're having a health fair and one of our client service people will be there to support senior health or whatever, but primarily focusing on faith-based groups and their efforts to fight hunger.
Thank you. So she's our key contact at the food bank in terms of the faith and the community at large. Any other announcements? Otherwise, we're going to jump in because it's an exciting topic, and I can see that Kate is with us. So other announcements? All right, well, then we're going to begin. And we're going to go a little old school this morning. Not totally old school. So Kate, I have opened the share screen in case you want to use that, just so you know. But, you know, even as adults, we have to do extra things sometimes, and maybe not extra things to help us remember. So I encourage you to always have a pen and a piece of paper. And while you're listening this morning, to be thinking about what your next step is going to be after hearing Kate. Who are you going to go tell about this opportunity? Or are you going to write a grant app? And how do you start and how quickly you're going to start? If I do my math right, there are about 500 of these grants. So this is not a small thing, and it can really change. It's not just a ripple, it's a tide, you know, that we can create together. So I invite you on that piece of paper, who are you going to tell? Or if you're going to write one. And I'm also going to invite you in chat. If you have an idea for what you would request this grant for, write it in the chat We'd love to see what you're thinking and what this could do and move in our community. So I want to thank my friend and colleague, Kate, from the Office of Sustainability. And we've had Douglas Melnick here before, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer with the city. But we all know Kate does all the work. I love Douglas, and he's like a brother. So I wish he were here so he could have heard that. Anyway, but Kate is doing some amazing work with the Office of Sustainability. So Kate, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on today. So I'm Kate Jaceldo. I'm the Climate Adaptation Manager with the Office of Sustainability, which is a new position, and it's really more community-facing projects, such as this Community Action Fund. And yeah, I'm just really excited to sort of talk about sort of a brief history. In 23 budget, City Council set up a fund called the REES Fund, Resiliency, Energy Efficiency, and Sustainability. And that is designated funds about, I believe, $7 to $10 million a year for the next several years for a variety of projects. And so this year in the budget via the REES Fund, they designated money for business incentive and grant programs and neighborhood and community grant programs. And so that's what we're running here. So I'm going to share my screen to show our dashboard. Okay, can y'all see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if y'all are not familiar with our SA Climate Ready dashboard, this is where you can find our climate action plan and all kinds of really valuable information, including links to the federal tax incentives that are out there as well. So when you go to our dashboard at sasustainability.com, you would navigate to the Community Action Fund, and that's where the information is for the programs. So both programs have the same categories, and they are both for projects up to $20,000 per applicant. So the main categories, and you can find these in these information packets as well as on the application itself. Let me pull up my list so I make sure I get them word for word correctly. Reduce building energy consumption, reduce transportation energy consumption, advance the circular economy and promote waste reduction, promote biodiversity and healthy ecosystems, and increase climate resilience and community adaptation. So that's 5 very broad categories that come straight from our climate action plan. And it really, we tried to encompass any kind of project that helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the community, helps, improve our quality of land and soil through nature-based solutions, reducing waste to landfill, and then just, all the things we need to do to adapt to the increasing heat and extreme weather we're experiencing. So when you navigate here in the packet, I have put a long list of potential projects for each category. We don't have a list of previously funded projects because this is the first time we've ever done this. So I have pulled lists from other cities that have done similar projects, but there's also resources from Reworks SA, which is our local solid waste program that certifies businesses. Sorry,
All of a sudden we're getting some feedback, Kate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, I think it's better.
Kate, could you also scroll to the, not just the business grant, but the other?
Yeah, sure. It's right up above.
Okay, the neighborhood community.
Yeah. So when you land on the community action page, you can hit neighborhood and community grants. And so that's those categories I talked about are the categories for the projects. We also have some overarching goals that we would like to see in the projects. And so that's building community partnerships. So we very much encourage projects that involve multiple partners, leveraging local and or federal funding. So some of that federal IRA money potentially, or other funding opportunities, contributing to community sustainability and resilience, which is sort of woven throughout the project categories, and then meaningfully involving underserved communities, diverse groups, or vulnerable populations. So we want to make sure that we are looking at these projects through an equity lens. And, you know, we know that the people that are most impacted by the effects of climate change tend to have the least impact on the problem. And so we really want to direct resources as much as possible to those communities. So I've kind of spoken a lot, and I'm really just, you know, if it's okay with you, Anne, like to open the floor to questions.
Sure. And folks, if you want to just raise your hand or just open your mic and we can go ahead and just talk about those questions. I think more than questions, I'd also like to hear people's ideas. And even if we'd have somebody kind of step up and say, well, this would be really good at our congregation if we could do such and such. And then maybe to even hear that conversation, Kate, with you and what then the grant looks like and that type of thing. I'm wondering, Joseph, if I know you're here today, does Town Twin have like a community garden, or how could you see a grant like this being utilized at Town Twin Village? That's, I think, a really great example.
Morning. We are not quite there yet, but we will
Ooh.
have a greenhouse and garden area, and it would be amazing then. I hope this opportunity is a recurring opportunity in the future.
So Kate, would that would be a type of project?
Absolutely, yes, that would be a type of project. And just to the point about recurring in the future, we do hope to have these funds again for grants. A lot of that depends on us showing leadership that the community wants these grants. So, but yes, we are planning to have similar grants moving forward over the next few years. So if you don't have a project quite ready, do be, you know, thinking about what could, you know, be on the horizon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Somebody asked in chat what the, you know, deadline is. Give us the timeline of these
Yes.
applications.
Yeah, so the applications opened on February 15th and they will close on April 30th. Our hope is to have them scored and decisions made by the end of May. So award notification letters will start going out late May into June. From that process, once the awardees are notified, they'll have to register as a vendor with the city, which is something they could do ahead of time to sort of help that process along. And then once all the paperwork is done, we will have set up a meeting to go over sort of the check-in plan, and then we hope to start issuing those funds in July.
So Anne's example from Town Twin is one. Do you have some other examples of projects that would be interesting or maybe preferred from y'all's standpoint?
So I did pull up from the information packet. This is where it goes more into the categories and potential project ideas. From our standpoint, I will say that, as we know, building energy and transportation energy are the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions in our community. So we'd love to see projects that you know, reduce those. And so these are the two categories I have up. So CPS is a great potential partner for the building energy consumption because they also have some rebate programs. So these are just some examples from them, as well as our Reworks SA certification guide. So upgrading lighting or appliances, weatherizing a building, so you're having to use less energy to heat or cool it. Building related water conservation efforts. So and then replacing gas-powered appliances or tools with electric. And then from transportation, that could be really it's reducing vehicle miles traveled, especially in the internal combustion engine. So maybe it's adding bikes or e-bikes to your fleet in some way, or hosting transit trip planning events, bike repair demonstrations, increasing those types of activities. But then from the other categories, there's a lot of other potential projects. So advancing the circular economy, that's really keeping waste out of the landfill and reusing it, repurposing it. So tool lending libraries, recycling education, even food donation programs, things like that. And then I think the biodiversity is one that a lot of people can easily think of several categories around: community gardens, seed libraries, pollinator habitats, things like that. And this is on the information packet online, so you can dive a little bit deeper. And then for increasing the climate resilience and community adaptation, that's really helping our community respond to some of the changes we're experiencing. So mobile cooling stations, more like lending libraries, air purifiers for people that are more impacted by air pollution, things like that.
Kate, I see we have two hands. Peter, then
Yes.
Susan.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Kate. I want to applaud the work that your office has done. I know we've been working through the EcoSA, and I also want to thank Judith Templeton in our meeting time, how you've consistently been providing the development of these grants, and how you really targeted the opportunity for those nonprofits and faith-based organizations to address the most vulnerable in the way the grants were set up. And I really see the opportunity in being able to build capacity as we link and leverage for funding with small projects that get started in the community, right where the need is and where you can have the greatest impact. And of course, one of the areas that I'm very interested in is energy efficiency, weatherization, resiliency, the home housing stock, those vulnerable, when you talk about the climate change impacting those homes and how they can be better equipped for extreme weather events, but then also how each individual entity and reducing the gas house emissions through energy efficiency and weather retrofits, like an LED lighting. And that's what we're looking at with our organization, doing LED lighting, and possibly with a separate group that we're working with as part of our organization, community grant or community garden also, and partnering with others and knowing the work that's already been started. I think it's a lot of opportunity to partner and plug in and moving toward that resiliency hub, that's I think next step, and how we start to plug these things into specific communities and really build that ecosystem, if you would, for that education, but also resources and moving that way. So just great work. I'm excited about the opportunity and working with all these groups that we're connecting with. Wonderful work.
So Peter, what are you writing your grant about specifically?
LED retrofit for our school. And then also being an advocate for promoting energy efficiency to faith-based organizations and coordinating with that resiliency hub model and trying to build that out from that emergency management model we talked about, to environmental resiliency, to social resiliency, how each piece has a place. But specifically this year, as Christians, we're called to be good stewards of what we've been given. So it's just a natural that we move in this, and being sure the most vulnerable are supported, and whatever decisions we make and we make climate change decisions, they impact them the most, as Kate said. And so we're trying to be an advocate for that community and being sure that they can take advantage of every opportunity.
I also think your idea of the working with the school is how the young people could be included in this process of what would that look like, could really have some fun with it. Susan, your hands is up.
It was. I'm sorry you're not getting my picture at 8 a.m., but that's not going to happen. And I'm here on behalf of AVA, the American Volt Sport Association, which is America's walking club. And the national headquarters is actually in the King William area. And so as soon as I found out about this grant program yesterday, I emailed our executive director, and we've been brainstorming ideas. And we don't own our building, we rent. So that kind of limits our options of what we'd be willing to do and what we can do. But one of the things we were thinking of was maybe like a bike repair station, because we're also a bicycle club and we have bicycle rides all over the country. But setting up something at our headquarters that would encourage people to ride bikes. So like a bike rack, a bicycle repair station. And I was thinking if we could put it outdoors to make it more accessible, even like a water bottle refilling station, because that's something that walkers need all the time. But we put our executive hats on, and we're thinking of ideas that we can use that can not only impact San Antonio, but can be used as like demonstration things that clubs can do all over the country. We have like 200 clubs all over from Alaska to Maine.
That's creative.
I love
mean,
that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I hear a couple of the categories sort of in there. So, just to the group, when y'all are thinking about projects, if it covers multiple categories, please include that in the application, because that will only strengthen the application. So
Yeah, you might
that's
want
really
to
great.
Yeah, you might want to scroll to the application so people will feel more
Sure.
comfortable with it and not overwhelmed. We've got another
Yeah.
hand up, but that hand up is going to have to tell us what their first name is.
I think that's mine, maybe, Victoria.
Thank you, Victoria. What you got?
Well, I am working with our school students with an eco club, and so far we have managed to have our cafeteria manager commit to using like for certain things they were using plastic for apples just to put the apple. And they were using styrofoam plates for the kids, and she has moved from styrofoam to compostables, and paper little trays for fruit. But I really feel like this type of lessons need to be expanded to all schools, to more schools, and the kids, they want to help, they want to do this. Next week or the week after spring break, we're interviewing our head custodian in ways that he can start recycling and using less plastic as well for cleaning supplies. And I have a field trip scheduled with a soap company for our students to learn how to make their own soap, bar soap instead of liquid soap. So just planting the seed so that they can learn how to be more sustainable themselves in their homes and in our school. And then, so I'm wondering, if I do that grant, then I also belong to COPS Metro, and our church at Holy Family in San Antonio West Side, is in very poor conditions. The windows need to be replaced. So would I be able to apply for the grant for something like that, to replace their windows?
Yes, absolutely. That would be a weatherization measure that I imagine would help manage their heating cooling bills and make it more pleasant. So that would absolutely be a category. And then with regards to the class projects you were talking about, so last year Solid Waste ran the Eco Scholars program, which funded class projects for K through 12 classroom projects. And so for this one, we are welcome schools or educational foundations to apply, but we encourage them to be projects that serve, and it sounds like what you mentioned for that could, the larger school community or even beyond. So like shade cover over a playground or something like that is the type, more far reaching impacts.
Yeah, and these are it's primarily getting in the classroom in front of the kids and going through these lessons with them, because like a lot of this, I don't know if other schools, but the schools that I've worked with, the teachers are very busy with their own curriculum and staying in sequence with what they're supposed to be at, where they're supposed to be at, and when they're supposed to be at that point. So when we introduce these lessons, it's almost like somebody needs to come in and do it for them because they're just not willing to do more because they're doing so much already. So and that's why I was saying these lessons need to go throughout the San Antonio area, not just one school. But yeah, so that and the Eco Grant is paying for our field trip. They're paying for our reusable totes that I have ordered. So it was a $5,000 grant from the Eco Scholars.
Awesome. So yeah, I think the plan to have it go, and there's a question also in the application, the longevity of the project. If you're developing curriculum that's going to be going to other schools to continue that going, I think that is a really compelling project.
So from the,
And this is Mignon.
Yes.
yeah, I
Sorry,
was just
I
gonna
can't
invite
raise
you
my
in,
hand.
Mignon.
Sorry. Kate, I heard you say something about food distribution programs. So our church, Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, has a food and clothing bank, which has been a part of the East Side for over 30 years. So my question would be, could a ministry like that apply for the grant? I'm thinking in terms of being able to purchase more for the food bank in terms of fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, and meats and protein.
So we definitely, as I mentioned, want to sort of look at projects that have longevity to them. So not necessarily just like a one and done project. So I think if there's a way to maybe create a partnership with another organization that, that can help build a longer term program. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the food distribution happens every week.
Okay.
Every Wednesday, and it has been for the last 30 years. But it doesn't have anything to do with the environment, so to speak, but it is meeting a need in an area that does not always have the best produce or access, where people don't always have access. So I was just wondering, was that something that the grant would cover?
So I think what you would need is an element of the food recovery. So I know there's a couple organizations out there that work with like restaurants and grocery stores to get the food that, they're going to maybe throw away. It's still good, but they can't keep it overnight, after they close. So if there's a way to sort of partner with somebody doing the food recovery from somewhere else, and that can be something maybe we can talk offline. I have a couple of ideas. So if you wanted to email me, you can do sustainability@sanantonio.gov, and all the grant questions will get to me that way. But something like that, I think. Yeah.
A quick question, Kate, because from what I know and listening, and we can move as large as our imagination can take us in a sense, right? So who can apply for it? If a neighborhood association, right, wanted to apply, would that be a possibility?
Absolutely.
And how would it work? Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, the project needs to show community impact. So we've had a couple of questions at other events or, emails about, can I use this to get like solar for my house? Which that answer is no, this is not for like a residential project. But if a neighborhood association were to come together and, identify a project that benefited the community on some level, that would definitely be encouraged. The main, and I'm just not as familiar with, but I believe most neighborhood associations have a tax ID number. They just have to be able to register as a vendor with the city to receive the funds. So there's that fiscal piece. And then, if they don't happen to have that, then we can talk to them about, how to get around that.
Yeah. So to, you're just gonna need some kind of fiscal agent, right? Somebody
Exactly. Yes. Pass them
to
that can pass
route the
them.
money through, right?
Exactly.
So we're gonna take a pause here at 8:30, Kate. And 8:30, Kate, that sounds like one term, doesn't it? So it's not, but we're gonna take a pause. I think, Kate, somewhere there's kind of a checklist about the application. And so you might go hunting for that. People might want to look at that checklist. Those who need to depart at this time to go on to other meetings and efforts, thank you for being with us this morning at the intersection. We've got some really exciting things coming up. And I'm not gonna like spoil them all. You just need to be watching for the e-notifications. I'm trying to get them out earlier so that you can invite others into this, somebody that you think about, they absolutely need to see this. The other thing I want to remind you is that all of these are recorded. What an easy thing to do, but to go to sacred.org at the intersection, find the recording, go to the part where Kate is doing the briefing, and then show this to your team or the organization you're thinking about doing all this with. So I encourage you to do that. Use those recordings. It's like inviting Kate, but without having to schedule her. That we all know how difficult, or I think it is, how difficult it can be to schedule ourselves together and speakers. And I know Kate will be willing to go anywhere, but we do have that recording advantage. So I'm wondering then at this point at 8:32, if we have any other thoughts, questions, ideas, and if Kate maybe found that checklist, because I found that checklist kind of helpful. I could look for it too. So is there anything, Kate, that you want to make sure that everybody knows about
So I
this?
can show you the application briefly because it is not terribly long. So I just want to sort of easing any anxiety about the application. So can y'all see
Scroll it.
this? So basically the first several questions are just about organization, contact, etc. Let's see, tax ID number. So then you're going to just select your primary category. Brief summary of the project, how much you are requesting. Then this will be more of the narrative of the project, the impact it will have, you know, what is the problem, why is it needed, and how it aligns with the climate ready plan. And then please include any geographic area, neighborhoods, specific communities that will be affected by the project. And then these are those overarching goals. So, you know, describe how any of these goals are met by the project. The more you can hit on, the better. And then this is just how the project aligns with that category from here that you selected. And this is also where you can talk about the multiple categories. If it hits on multiple categories, you can lay that out. So then any community partners that you're going to be engaging with this organization, and like sort of the status of that, like, are they already on board, etc. We would like a timeline and milestones. So just as realistic as possible. Ideally, projects would be wrapping up in about a year, but depending on the project, we understand that that could vary. So we just want to see a clearly thought out timeline. Metrics, so that's just really how you're going to measure success. And so that may be energy savings, that could be vehicle miles, less vehicle miles traveled. If you switched, you know, to bikes somehow, it can be number of people served, trees planted, things like that. Project longevity, so how is this going to continue beyond the grant term? What's the lasting impact of the on the community? Because we know some of these projects, certainly like tree plantings, it may be done in a year, but we know the impact is going to grow beyond, right? So any other details that you may need to include, like if you are not the owner of the building, you know, but you have landlord approval, which is, you know, required in that case. Detailed budget. So we really want to know as clearly as possible how much, like what the money's going to, any other funding sources that you have. We do in the information packet on the dashboard have a template you could use, but you're welcome to use whatever budget template you'd like, and then you'll just email it to the sustainability email. And then we'd like at least two independent references. So that can be from those organizations you're partnering with, or some other just, you know, outside partner from previous work. And then sign and date the application. So it's 24 questions. We highly encourage that you know, write it in a separate document so that you can then just cut and paste it into the form, because you can't like save it and come back to it. And I think that's just the easiest for filling those out. Sonia, question?
Yes, I wanted to ask you, for those organizations that are smaller, right, and are, you know, like the gentleman who was asking questions for smaller grant totals. Whenever I read on the survey or on the application form and it says metrics and how will you track those or what, that's some type of language usually that city uses and professionals. Is there like a guide that you might provide with this application to explain a little bit more of how they could capture measures, or what is a measure of performance, like maybe something like that for the language for those smaller organizations that are not too familiar with this process?
Sure. The information packet that's on the dashboard talks a bit more about metrics, and we provided some for some specific category types. So there are some very free, like easy to use tools out there for tracking your building energy emissions. So that's a real clear-cut one we can share. Other projects, it may vary, but we do talk a little bit about their different types of metrics. And I encourage people to reach out to us to talk through that if that's a question that they're not sure quite how to work through. And then the other piece is that we will be, when we evaluate the applications, if there are pieces that are, you know, not as developed, we will be reaching out to sort of clarify. So we want to, you know, make sure that people have a chance to really be able to access the application and the funds.
I love that. Great question, Sonia. But I love that, Kate, about how you're willing to work with people if they don't understand a question or something. Maybe you could put your contact information in chat, that you would be available to talk through something and try to figure it out. The application process looks fairly simple. I mean, 24 questions, but it's basically telling the story and thinking through what you're planning. So it's almost like kind of a business plan, but you know, not that great big thing that you might work on, just the basic questions. How you're going to spend the money and what you're going to invest into, and how is that going to impact community. And I think that's great. Victoria asked, do you foresee running out of funds quickly?
So we don't really know what to expect, but we don't really foresee that happening. So we do have, just to clarify, like the amount of funds. So it's 2 buckets of money. The neighborhood and community grants, the budget for the whole program is $1 million. We are having to pay for some of the marketing out of that, but we're keeping that number as small as we can. So we're projecting if all the applications come in for the full amount of 20,000, we know we can fund at least 45 grants. Now we're sure there will probably be applications that are smaller than that, so that just stretches the money. So we do not. And as far as running out quickly, we'll start scoring as soon as applications come in, but we're not going to assign awards until every application's been scored. So it's not don't rush to get it in at the expense of a better application, as long as it's in by the deadline.
But then there's another bucket.
So there's
talk about
another
the other
bucket for business grants, and that's 1.5 million. And so it's the same, $20,000 grant. So those can, potentially go further. Again, we're still paying for some of the marketing and a little bit of administrative support, processing the applications and whatnot. But it's still a significant chunk of money. And from the research we've done, it's the largest amount of money for this type of grants that any city in the country has done before. So it's very exciting. And we're very excited to see what kind of projects come in from the community.
8:41. Any last questions or thoughts other than I love this idea, and I'm hoping that other departments in the city will start to think more in these terms, like where the smaller grants in one sense, but there are many of them and across the community, and the application process isn't too complicated, but to move it forward rather quickly and get those funds out, into the world as quickly as possible. So,
well, we're very lucky in that this is not federal funding we are distributing. So that I think a lot of departments, just to give them credit, their grant programs come from like federal funds, which just come with so many more strings. So we are able to sort of make this as flexible as we can.
Hi, this
And
is
there-
Raul Sendejas. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say I saw in the chat, in case anyone else was wondering the same question, I did answer it there. White roof projects would definitely qualify. We do encourage people to, look at the other resources, like if they can do the cool roof program or under one roof through the city, but otherwise, yeah, cool roofs for community buildings would qualify. Sorry,
Raul,
Raul.
did you have something?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I was running a little late, and I apologize about that. My question is about the budgets in regards to, typically, I just want to know what's the average that y'all are funding. I don't know if you have that information. That way I can get a good idea in regards to, as I'm looking at metrics and budget estimates. So I just want to know what are some of the averages that you guys are funding?
So this is the first time we've run this program, so we don't really have historical data, but it is, eligible for up to $20,000. So we have had a few applications come in. They are tending to leaning towards the full amount, but it's really going to be about like the quality of the application and the impact, and then how much money we have as they come in and get scored.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, it's 8:44, and at 8:45, I usually close the Zoom. I'm glad you stayed with us, hung in there with us, Kate, and shared this really valuable information. What I'm really excited about then is to hear about the projects so that are funded, and maybe, when we get into July, we get that direction. What are all those projects? What do those look like? So thank you all for being with us this morning, and put your thinking caps on. Who do you need to talk to, Susan? It looks like Susan's already talking before she even called. So, who do you need to talk to, and how can you move this forward? When I heard this presentation on Monday at our EcoSA, our environmental collaborative, there were 24 people in the room, and they each had a different idea, and they were quite powerful. And but I also heard apply early, get that application in. Don't wait till the deadline like I normally do. Wait, get it in soon, because your chances will be higher to get that, right? So thank you for that, Kate, the innovation. Tell Douglas, thank you for hanging in there with community. He's not given up on community. And I just love that about that guy. So, and all the people here totally believe that the work comes through community for community. And so that's why we're here at the intersection. Thank you all for being with us, and we will see you next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.